Atlas Fights bantamweight champion Levi Mowles. What's going on, Levi? How's life right now under this unique circumstances?
Man, it's definitely unique. It feels like we're finally getting some normalcy back. Everything's getting back to normal, and it feels good to be back in the gym, back training, back doing my thing.
Before we started this, you were telling me about your training situation right now at the gym. Can you
Yeah,
break that down again for me?
yeah, absolutely. So the way it worked down here in Texas, they opened stage one and they allowed like partial contact and stuff and people to come back into the gym, and it's supposed to be like uh you're supposed to come in and do like warm ups and like one-on-one sessions with the coaches and stuff like that, and have groups of just hitting bags and stuff. So they opened that up, and the minute like that same week they opened that up, we had like 20 people show up for jiu-jitsu class, hoping that the gym was back open, and coach was like, man, I can't, like, all of us understand that like if we're there, we're not worried about the COVID situation. So as much as it was kind of like against the rules of social distancing, we were like, we understand the risk, and we like all signed a waiver, and we are like, we understand the risk, and we're fully prepared to accept like the consequences, and like if we have to quarantine ourselves. But so coach was like, after this week, man, we're just going full blast and getting back into it, and that's what we've been doing for the past 2 or 3 weeks now.
Yeah, you make a good point on about when you're at the gym, you don't think about all the things that's going on outside in the world. It's an escape, and people didn't have that for months or for
Months,
weeks or
man.
wherever how long they've been on lockdown. So, yeah,
Yeah.
people must be eager to just be back in there and have fun.
Yeah, like I said, man, the moment we opened up, man, we had a gang of people. It was over 20 something people on the mats that night, and they were like, man, we don't care. We just want to train. It's our release. It's our getaway, from the day-to-day grind. So, yeah.
When I look at your career, man, you started in 2014 as a
Yeah.
teenager.
Yeah.
Who influenced you the most to start this career or to start this lifestyle as a fighter?
And that's so hard to pick and choose. I've had many different role models in my career. Originally, there was no like decision. It was more the basis of I have a younger brother, and he's a year younger than me. He's a black belt as well, and like just growing up, we had that sibling rivalry between each other, and we just always were trying to get one up on each other. And eventually that led to us finding training in jiu-jitsu, and from there I kind of branched out on my own to do MMA. So in the beginning there was no real role model. It was kind of like always the plan. It was just trying to get that one up on my younger brother. um Eventually, though, as I started like really training for MMA and fights, in the beginning, I definitely attribute a lot of my success to my coaches, and then as a role model, I always had Johnny Bedford, one of my main training partners and coaches, as a big role model to me. He's on the Ultimate Fighter, was in the UFC at the time, and I was just training him with him for fights. Like I was his one of his main jiu-jitsu partners when he was getting ready to face Hani. So at that time, I was really looking up to him, looking forward for him to do well. And I think like in the beginning, especially, he was one of my big motivators and mentors in the game.
Having a brother at home, jujitsu must have been crazy. Like sparring, like you have endless
Every
sparring
day,
sessions every day.
every day, dude. It's kind of weird now. I don't live at home with my parents anymore. He's in college now. He's going to school for wrestling. But dude, anytime I go back home, I can't go 2 minutes without us like trying to hug each other, and it turns into a full blown wrestling match on the carpet. You know what I'm saying? It's always been like that, and I love my brother for it. He's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, that's what creates the monsters in the cage, right? Just that
For
that
sure, man. For
always you're
sure.
always on alert.
Yeah, always, man. We don't give up an underhook in our house. It's like a golden rule.
You got a plaque on the wall. Don't give up an underhook. That's
No,
the
don't give
rules.
up.
Yeah.
Give up.
Now you talk about Johnny Bedford, but before that, what was the first gym you stepped inside of? Was it you and your brother went together and be like, okay, we're gonna get into the jiu-jitsu? Could you talk about the first couple weeks of
Yeah, yeah.
training? Did you just fall in love instantly, or were you like, man, this shit is hard?
So originally, me and my younger brother, we were playing Pee Wee football, like a youth sports, and At the time I had gotten it, like I was going into the point where I could start playing school sports, and he was still playing pee wee sports. Um, he had a teammate on his football team that was doing wrestling and was cross training jujitsu at this gym in Waxahachie. Now we had heard about jujitsu and stuff, and we had like wrestled around all throughout kids years, but after the football season was over, we were looking for something to do on our kind of like our off time. It was summer break. We didn't have really much to do, and we would always fight. So our parents were like, "Well, let's go try out this jujitsu thing. Let's go try out this grappling stuff, and we'll see if you like it. And you like it, we can try to set it up and get y'all going." I walked into a gym in Waxahachie, Texas, a little town, but I mean bigger than what the town we were living in at the time, but a very small town. Uh, and I met my jiu-jitsu coach and the guy who gave me my black belt, Brandon Quick. He had just moved there from California a year before. I walked in 2008, and from then it was like he had a way of coaching us to always push me in a good direction. And while some of his stuff, like some of the stuff, I look back on now, I was like, dang, that was super rough. But I thank him for it, and it kind of pushed me to be who I am today. And I look back now, I'm like, man, I've been through some stuff, dude. It was kind of crazy walking in and doing that, and then meeting Brandon, and here we are 12 years later, and I'm still great friends with him. He just moved to Florida. He's doing his thing, but he gave me my black belt. I still love him to death, man.
You're only 24, but 12 years ago you started, which means your
Yep.
base. Do you consider your base jiu-jitsu, or do you consider your base as MMA?
I think when I walked in, I had intentions to do MMA, but I just fell in love with jiu-jitsu, man. I still love jiu-jitsu. I love putting on a gi. Like, even though I train for MMA fights, I love putting on a gi. So yes, I do consider my base jiu-jitsu. Like I said, I got my black belt 4 years ago now. So it's been a long ride, but I definitely have put a lot of time into my jiu-jitsu, and I think it pays off, and it shows in a lot of my fights. I have a lot of wins by submission victory.
Yeah, definitely. You snatch up that neck real quick. Now, 2019, man, you started it off great, you ended it great, but in between you had some bumps. Talk about
Yep.
that period and what you went through exactly.
Which specific one are you talking about?
Are you talking
Where,
about like
where,
the cancellations and
yeah,
the fight that fell through?
man, it's hard to say. And it was a lot of it was I don't want to say lack of discipline on my side, but it's just sometimes you get in that rut, and you, as a fighter, I'm sure a lot of people could speak on it. It's just hard to stay motivated for a fight, hard to be ready, And I found myself getting into that motivation period, like coming back to who I was and who I am for fights a little too late, and it cost me to have trouble making weight for that fight. And unfortunately, because of the athletic commission, he doesn't have to accept the fight. And I don't blame him for it. I missed weight on that one, and he agents declined. And I mean, nothing bad about him. Nothing ill will there. Just a slip up on my part. And again, happens sometimes. Fighters miss weight. Sometimes you just have a bad cut, a bad camp. I feel like I had a bad camp on that one. Um, but you adjust, and from then on, I've kind of vowed to myself to make 135, and for the last two fights, I've made champ weight. So that's what I'm looking to stay doing and keep working forward towards that.
Yeah, that was a unique situation. The reason why I say that is because you already fought him before
Yeah,
and you beat him. So I would have thought that, even though you didn't make weight, maybe you would have took the fight anyways because you want to get the revenge, right?
right. Some people would think like that too. But he knows, like, I'm not saying he's scared, but he knows, like, I'm a tough fight. I'm a tough fight
Mm.
for anyone at 135, and I believe that even for guys in the UFC. And for me to miss weight and him to take that fight, I just think he understands that, like, man, you can't be doing that, especially at this level of pros. That's disrespectful on my part, but he also understands, like, giving up that much weight is a big disadvantage. I think he's a smaller 135er as well, so, like, he didn't want to accept that. So I don't blame him for it either.
Yeah, especially when you're at this point of your career, and he's also,
For sure.
in an important, point of his career where every fight counts,
Every
every
fight counts.
fight can put you at the next
Yeah,
level, right?
yeah. It could either one of us could get a
Mhm.
call up any day, man.
Mhm.
One fight here, one fight there. Short notice calls, like it happens. You just gotta stay ready at this point.
Well, earlier this year, you know, you're one of the very few on the regional scene that got a fight in, and it was a title fight. You
Yep.
took on Carlos Vera, finished him in the second round,
Yes, sir.
captured the 135-pound title. Take us through that finish, man. It was beautiful, just like any other finish that you have.
Um, Man, he was a tough dude. I could tell. I kind of really leaned into my grappling on that one. There were some spots where I figured he had some tricky striking where he would spin and 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 try to throw some crazy kicks. So I figured after a certain point, if I could tie him up, wear him down, take some of his breath out, wind out of his sails, some breath out of him, I'd be able to finish him and eventually like just like anyone else, man. I feel like my jujitsu really is the highlight of my career, and taking him down, I was able to work what I wanted to work, and then eventually gave up his back and able to sink in the rear naked choke, man. Carlos is a good dude, but I just think I outwork a lot of people, and I think especially on the ground, I'm a tough matchup for anyone at 135.
Do you feel like that is the performance that you would show people if they don't know who you are yet, or is there another performance out there that shows more of your skill set?
If you're looking for a great skill set, man, it's so hard. I've had some wars with some people that I really look back on, and I like watching my work, my handiwork, especially like the Rafion Stotts fight. I thought was an awesome fight on my part. I mean, I didn't get the W, but I felt like my striking looked good. Even some of the grappling exchanges, I feel like he got some of the better parts of it, but I felt like I got some of the better parts of it. Um, I think the Carlos fight is a good fight for me, like to show people, but I don't think it shows all of who I am. You know, I didn't stand up as much with him. I wanted to get in there, get the win, get the belt on my shoulder. You know,
Well, yeah, that's the most important thing is to get that W.
for
You've
sure.
won your 7 out of your last 8. You know you
Yep.
got the belt wrapped around your waist. What's the next logical step for yourself?
Well, so right now it's kind of weird because of this whole COVID situation. Atlas is trying to open back up and find fights and get things scheduled. Um, at at the current moment, they're trying to book me for the end of July, I think, in Biloxi, Mississippi. I think one of the casinos there open back up. I don't know what the crowd situation is going to be like, but I think that's what they're trying to book me for now. So what I figure is I just need to get in shape, get back into camp, and keep doing my thing. And then if a short notice call up comes along the way to the UFC on my way to this fight, I'll take that happily. You know what I'm saying? But it's just get back to work, get back to doing my thing and get back to 135 so I can go and win this next fight and hopefully propel myself to the UFC anyways.
Well, the UFC seems like they're looking at Texas a lot because a lot of the talent that they're signing on short notice is coming from Texas. You got Ike Villanueva just got signed from
Yep.
Houston. Anthony Ivy today just
Yes,
got
I saw that.
signed and on less than a week's notice. And yeah, and those are some talented guys. You're one of the guys also in Texas that's doing his thing, and a bunch of other
Sir,
guys. There's a long list, so I'm pretty sure you'll be there in the next
I
year or
appreciate
so. No doubt, man.
that.
Now
Us Texas
one
boys
last
like
thing.
to scrap.
Yeah, yeah,
Us
yeah,
Texas boys like
definitely.
to scrap, man.
Yeah, yeah. Now one last thing is like when when you watch MMA, you know, there's so many different types of competitors out there, and usually they're divided into two different types. Most of the time, you got the prize fighter, and then you got the
Mm.
martial artist, right? Where would you consider yourself? What would you consider
Oh,
yourself?
it's so hard to call. Because like I said, I've been doing jujitsu for such a long time, and I think it really shows in my fights. So I would like to consider myself the martial artist. But man, there's been some times where I just get out there and it becomes a slugfest. If I could make up a third category, I'd call myself an entertainer. I try to put on a show
Okay.
for my fans, whether that's grappling or striking. You know, um, if I'm leaning towards one, it's probably the prize fighter because I just like putting on that show for people. But you know, I really want my name to go down as someone that was entertaining rather other than anything else. You know, I want people to remember me because just like Donald Cowboy Cerrone, he takes all comers and he shows up to fight. People like watching him. He's entertaining. It's an awesome event when he fights, and I want to be someone like that. You know.
All right. Well, no matter if it's Atlas fights, if it's UFC short notice, if it's Contender series, people are gonna be looking for you. Levi, thank you
Yep.
so much for the time, and good luck and be safe out there in these streets, man. Cause you got the
Yeah.
COVID, you got the looting, you got so much going on, man. You just gotta,
Crazy stuff
I
right
guess,
now, man.
stick to what you know and just move forward, man. Thank you so much.
No, no problem. Thank you, sir, for having me.